myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the...
Hi and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Tuesday night and it is time to speak to Liam Kennedy. This is a pre-recorded show. We've had to do this on Monday, but obviously Liam and I are travelling down to Rotherham today to watch the pre-season friendly. But we did put a call out for questions on Twitter, and as always, you lot haven't let us down. How are you doing, Liam? You okay?
Yeah, all good. Back to work this week. Back into the swing of things, and fingers crossed. Look, hopefully we'll see a little bit of positive activity with regards to Newcastle United. Let's not think about anything off the pitch in terms of takeover and all that kind of thing. Let's hope we see some positive activity with regards to things that are the here and now, transfers. We'll get Graham Jones back, all that kind of thing, and hopefully we'll start building towards the season, because with the Euros going on till only a few weeks ago, really, that it's kind of felt like there hasn't been much of a summer, doesn't it? There hasn't really been a lot of break without football. So yeah, we're only about 2.5 weeks away from the start of the Premier League season, which is quite incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And, I just think that whenever there's a major tournament in the summer, it always ends up in that position where, that things do get delayed, transfers, etc. But if you're a Newcastle United fan, let's face it, transfers get delayed full stop anyway in the summer under Mike Ashley. So there's not really anything we can say about that. Okay, I just want to give a quick shout out to Bobik's event as well, because this is in aid of the food bank. Bobik's United Reality Football Fantasy. Now, that is the old Punch Bowl in Jesmond. And on Thursday, the 5th of August, you can join me and Liam and a few others from NUFC Matters. I know Steve Hastie's going to pop along, one or two others. Thursday, the 5th of August, 7:30 till late. Tickets for that are £10. All proceeds going to the food bank, and you need to buy your tickets from either www.bobix.com or telephone 07921 854092. And that is, once again, www.bobix.com. Bobix is BOBIKS.com. And the telephone number for tickets as well is 07921 854092. Me and Liam would love to see you there, and it'll be a cracking show with all proceeds, as I say, going to the food bank. So get yourself along. Okay, let's get to the questions. And the first one is a simple one from Tom Dixon. He says, when will Newcastle make a move in the transfer window?
They're desperately trying to make moves now. Look, it's something that I've regularly preached on this show, that things were always going to be tight this summer. I think everybody connected with the club would have hoped they could have made a breakthrough by now. They're largely playing the waiting game on a number of transfers, which is what Steve Bruce alluded to. We know he's not the best with words. Sometimes things are quite inflammatory. I think the wait till the big clubs do their business stuff was probably peed a lot of fans off. I've certainly seen that myself on social media. But what he's kind of saying is that the players that Newcastle United are looking at are loans from the top end of the Premier League. And until a lot of the major business is done this summer, and let's be absolutely honest, it is starting to move and things are starting to happen, but there hasn't been a huge amount of business with regards to normal transfer window. There still is a lot of movement to be made. And I think only then, when things start kicking on with the top clubs, and I get what he says, and I get why everyone's angry, I also get that as well. But it is where Newcastle United are at the moment. We'll look like we're going to have the accounts very, very soon. The accounts could even be out by the time this show goes out. And I don't think they're going to really reflect all that well on in terms of revenues over the last, I think it'll be for 13 months probably. And I think only when the accounts come out, we'll really see the true impact of what COVID and the fans being away from grounds, reduced commercial revenues. We're only going to see the real impact of that when the accounts come through. And the one thing that I've said here, I think I spoke about this last week, was that what we need is, in times of hardship such as this, and I say relative hardship, in times where revenues drop, you need a benefactor. You need somebody who's willing to, even if they're not willing to foot the bill permanently, just willing to put the money in till future revenues start roll him back in. But Mike Ashley's unwilling to do that. I've seen quite a good analogy from Kieran Maguire, who I get on quite well with. I've done a lot of interviews with, been on my personal podcast as well on the Shields Gazette. And he described it as Mike Ashley's almost trying to sell his house and he's seen a crack in the window. And the last thing in the world he's going to do is replace the full window. He's just not going to do it. And I think that's unfortunately the situation we find ourselves in. There's a lot of people at that football club didn't believe that Newcastle United would be under their stewardship at this point. Even that was probably the case up to 6 weeks ago. They really didn't believe. And I still think there are some people there at the moment who believe that it could still change hands this summer. But I think we've all realistically just got to look at the here and now, as I said earlier, and I'd love them to do the same and just treat the club with a bit of respect and try and get stuff done. Look, they're working hard. They're trying to get stuff done. Midfield, as Steve Bruce said, there's about 5 or 6 players who could end up at Newcastle United. They really could. Going from the likes of old interest in Hamza Chowdhury. Conor Gallagher sounds like a really difficult one to do. A lot of interest. Crystal Palace seem to be leading the way. Who've done some really good business, if I'm honest. It looks like this summer, possibly apart from maybe the manager. The likes of, obviously, the names that are out there at the moment. Joe Willock's absolutely top of that. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is one that they were interested in January, but they were really keen, number one target to get Joe Willock. And Maitland-Niles would have been somebody, if they couldn't have got Willock, that they would have turned to him. So I can see the interest there, but that's complicated by the fact that budgets are tight and Newcastle United can only loan one player from a certain club. Central defence is one they're really working hard on. I think that Aja was the top target. And obviously we all know he's gone to Brentford. And we had Lee Clark on the show maybe 6 weeks ago, and we talked in depth about the qualities Aja would bring. And one thing that I did warn at the time was that because things are so tight with Newcastle United, they're always at risk with the game that they're playing and trying to get people within budget, that somebody will come in and outbid them and just take the player away. And that happened in the case of Brentford. It looked like it might have been Norwich. Norwich wouldn't go as high as Brentford, and Brentford took the man. I mean, there's doubts out there. Will he be good enough? I don't know. He's a lad with a lot of talent. Will he make the step into the Premier League seamlessly? Who knows? He could, and I think he's got a good chance. And he was a player that they really wanted, because I know a few people who represent him, his agency up in Scotland, and there was genuine interest there from Newcastle United, and they were leading the race at one point this summer. But money talks, and Newcastle United ain't got a lot of it. And I think, like I say, the accounts will probably show that. That doesn't mean that they're sitting there, sitting on their hands this summer. They are trying, but the type of market that they're in is quite niche. They're basically looking to take fringe, young or fringe players from top clubs, who they believe will can walk into the club and make a big impact on the first team as starters effectively. But when you're looking at fringe and young players, the problem you've got is that they won't let them go till the end of the window. So Newcastle United are probably going to have to hang on, and we're all going to have to be a little bit patient.
I get that, and I agree with you. Yet why allow Bobby Clark, who has been tipped to be one of the biggest players in the game, by many who know what they're talking about, and that doesn't mean the people who scouted Joe Linton. Bobby Clark allowed to go to Liverpool. Devastating, really, for Lee, I guess. I mean, Lee just wants what's best for his boy, but I'm sure we'll get Lee back on the programme at some point. But I don't understand why we're letting young talent like that go. And Bobby Clark could be one of the biggest mistakes we make, because we might end up buying him back at some point for a ridiculous fee, like we did with Alan Shearer.
Well, what I would say on that one is that if you put yourself in Lee Clark as a dad, for example, of his son, he knows the setup at Newcastle United. He's been there. He's worked there himself. It's changed very, very little since the time that he was there. We're seeing a new broom now with Steve Harper, and it sounds like he's come in with some good ideas, innovative ideas. And it needed that. It needed a new broom, because things had got stale. Newcastle's under 23s, as we've seen from results, although results don't actually really matter at that level. It's about developing players. But we've seen it results going through 23s, 18s, etc. that haven't been great. And I think that reflects, is there a winning mentality coming up from the youths? And I think that's one thing that Steve Hart wants to address. But going back to Bobby Clark, Lee Clark knows the setup at Newcastle United. And I would be honest and say if he were my son, I wouldn't be disappointed that he was going elsewhere to be nurtured, because I don't necessarily think Newcastle United is the best place for young kids to be nurtured. I think you only have to look at the route to the first team at present. So Bobby Clark rated higher than maybe a Matty or a Sean Longstaff would be at that age. But you just look at players like that and the way that they've been developed. Have they really got any better since they've gone into the first team pool? It's arguably they haven't got any better. They've probably gone backwards. You would say the same of Elliot Anderson. That's the next big fear. That Anderson, of course, Bobby Clark rated much higher than what Elliot Anderson was at the same age. But you look at Elliot Anderson and say, this summer's crucial. Will they make the Matty Longstaff mistake? Are Newcastle United the best club for looking after young kids, getting them the right loans, developing them as footballers, developing them as individuals? And I know that's something that Steve Hart has spoken a lot about, and he wants to change that mentality. But we've got to be realistic here and say his scholarship years will probably be better served at Liverpool. Tottenham are very, very interested. His scholarship years would be better served at Tottenham. They'd be better served at Aston Villa. They'd be better served at I can think of probably 20 to 25 clubs in England where they'd probably be better served. Look, up until probably a few years ago, and people won't like to hear this, probably not now, but up until a few years ago, they would have been better served at Sunderland. They definitely would be better served at Middlesbrough. That's just where we are. That's what Newcastle United is. It's not really being somewhere where it nurtures young kids and does it correctly, gets them up into the first team and treats them properly. So yeah, it is, and it could be. And it could be one, like you say, Steve, that bites Newcastle in the backside when Bobby Clark turns out and goes to Liverpool, whatever, makes his Liverpool debut in the League Cup in a year's time or something like that. You know what I mean? And then develops into a wonder kid, which he's got the ability by all accounts to be. But it's just where Newcastle United are at present. They're stagnating as a football club, and they're not getting any better. And that's the frustration that a lot of people had when they know the inner workings of what, say, for example, and I hate going back and on about it, he's Everton manager now, but Rafa Benitez wanted to develop that part of the club massively, and was just knocked back from doing it. We are where we are, and it's a shame, but really, I mean, Steve, put yourself in them shoes as well. Would you think that? I think he's probably better served at Liverpool, and like I say, 20.
No, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I'm just playing devil's advocate, really, and just saying, we're bringing in young players, yet we're letting good local young players go. And there's no doubt, I think I've said this already with regards to the pre-season friendlies that I've been to so far, York and Doncaster. Obviously, Rotherham tonight, but the improvement I've seen in Murphy in particular, because he's been in pre-season training a little bit longer than everybody else. However, the desire to do well in a black and white shirt is there for all to see, because he's a Geordie and he's a black and white fan. He's a Newcastle fan. You know what I mean? He's Paul Dummett's the same. He might not be the greatest defender that Newcastle United has ever had, but there's a burning desire to do well, not just for himself as a professional footballer, but also because he's pulling on that black and white shirt of Newcastle United. He'll not let you down. He'll run through a brick wall for you,
Oh, definitely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, but Jacob Murphy, it's there for all to see. You just have to see, like, for example, his muscular composition and things like that. He's a much stronger physical athlete today than what he was when he left for his first loan. His physical transformation is quite incredible. And he needs that if he's going to play that role. If he's going to play the full-back role, he's going to have to be fit. He's going to have to get up and down the pitch. He's going to have to be strong against wingers. He's going to have to maintain that pace. He's going to have to deal with big centre forwards at times, pulling out out wide. And I think he's putting himself in a position to be in the best physical state, the best mental state he possibly can be. We all seen the pictures in the summer of him coming back in training 2-3 weeks early or 4 weeks earlier than a lot of people. Obviously everybody was in and out because a lot of people stayed local, a lot of players that were in and out of the training ground, but Jacob Murphy was one who really utilised that and got stuck in. And I think it's quite nice to see. Obviously we do care about players like that because it's in his heart. He is black and white through and through. His parents are black and white through and through. His brother is as well. And we do care, but it's nice to see a lad grasping an opportunity, because the exit door was wide open for Jacob Murphy this time last year, and he managed to get himself into a squad, make an impact at first team level. And I now think this is probably the most crucial season he'll have in his career. It's now he's got to go from being somebody, he's a surprise package and he's done really well. He's now got to produce what he did at the back end of the season consistently. He's got to consistently come up with assists. He's got to consistently make sure he doesn't. There's no defensive errors in there, which there were very, very few in his time, considering he isn't a right wing back or a right back by trade. But yeah, it's really nice to see, and I hope, because he's such a nice, quiet, honest lad, that I hope it works for him, and I hope we do see Jacob Murphy develop into the player that obviously there is an ability there to be. You're on mute, Steve.
It's because the missus was making noise in the background, and I was too busy concentrating on these Twitter questions and not letting them, not losing any, because I know how annoyed some of the people back home get when they can hear background noise. I had one day last week, there was some cooking going on, going on what you're having for your tea. Classic. Eye contract management anyway. Good evening, he says, has Liam heard the same story in the Mirror of Lacazette being available for £15 million? He says, if the rumours are true and bank loan him, Willock and Maitland-Niles, great. Only need to loan centre-half and a right-back or wing-back cover. That's from Simon.
Yeah, good question, Simon. I haven't heard anything with regards to Lacazette and Newcastle United. So if that's what you're getting at, I think that's not the market Newcastle United are in at the moment. But when you talk about Willock and Maitland-Niles, Willock is the absolute number one target this summer. And I've said on here, I think there's a good chance that he will end up at Newcastle United. Things can change, things can move. But I think one thing that is increasingly certain is he's unlikely to remain at Arsenal this summer. Maitland-Niles is another whose development really, as good as the loan for Willock turned out to be, the Maitland-Niles loan to West Brom probably didn't quite work for him, considering it must be considered that only 6-8 months ago he was a regular in the England squad and was playing regularly for England as well. To see where he is now, he's stalled a bit, so it would work for him for a move. It would be a great move to come to somewhere like Newcastle United, a player who can not only play in midfield really, really well, can also cover that right-hand side as well, if needs be. But a lot of that depends on the money, and if Newcastle United come to an agreement with regards money on Joe Willock, I still suspect it's probably going to be a loan with a potential obligation on Willock, which rules out any move for Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Few takeover questions, Liam, I'm afraid.
Back on. Well, I'll try and get through as many as we can. I'll try and be a bit more quick fire.
Rich Joblin, he says, hi, question for the show. Why did Amanda's husband come out and point the finger at the Premier League following the arbitration delay? It doesn't fit the narrative the club wanted delay.
Well, I think the idea that the club wanted a delay was more people sort of joining dots together. It's not something obviously I reported on. It looked that way. I'll be brutally honest. It looked that it could be that way. That was my personal thinking. Could it be the football club? But speaking to people, it sounds like it isn't the football club at all. It sounds like it has been another Premier League delay, and the club weren't all that happy and remain rather unhappy with the conduct of the Premier League. But we'll just have to wait and see how that one plays out. We're now in the long game. If we're ever not in the long game, it's felt at times where we could get some kind of short-term resolution. And I think everybody has had to reset their minds over the course of the last week or so, from being like July, the answers are in July, to being more, look, we're gonna have to see how this one plays out. My only concern with the whole takeover thing at present is if we go cat and if it becomes a medium to long-term thing. Let's say, for example, and people hate hearing this, if, for example, it says it will take 2 years to get a decision on that, let's just say, I don't know if it will. It may only take a few months. I honestly don't know. I'm not going to predict timescales, but say, for example's sake, 2 years. Is this Mike Ashley version of Newcastle United with Steve Bruce's manager that flirted with relegation for probably 2/3 of the season from December November, December onwards last season, and only got out because of, like I say, Joe Willock inspired goal scoring ridiculous form from midfield. Is that Newcastle United capable of staying in the Premier League for the next 2 seasons? You've got to have question marks about it. So that would be my biggest concern moving forward: is how long this takes, and if Newcastle United can remain a Premier League club in the meantime. And that's so grim. That's so depressing to say that as well, by the way, because ultimately this is a passion, a pastime. It's something we all care about, and the idea of just plodding through mud for the next 2 years is quite grim, actually. And I can see why so many people are turning off to the idea of Newcastle United at the moment. I actually totally understand it. We've seen the season ticket stuff this week. Club begging for people to get back on board. It's going to be a tough sell. And
been a nightmare for people as well. The system's not working either. People trying to renew season tickets, and it's an absolute mess at the moment, apparently.
I mean, what I would say, Stephen, I'd love to be absolutely shocked here. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. But the way that you see things at the moment, it's hard to see how Newcastle United's average crowds will remain anywhere near 50,000 next season, because we had the massive drop off, the 10,000 tickets given away. I mean, could you be looking at crowds of 40,000 on a regular basis next season? It's a distinct possibility, unless the club pulls some kind of stunt as they did last time.
Yeah, they need a rabbit from the hat, really, in the transfer market. That rabbit could be Willock, of course, but they're also, going to be that situation. I mean, we saw 3,000 down at Doncaster last week, 1,600 down at Rotherham tonight. The thirst for people to get on the road again and go to football matches is there. There might be that kind of reaction for people going to the games at St James's Park again. I would anticipate West Ham will be sold out regardless. But season tickets is one thing, paying match to match is another. So there will be games where we will, and I've got no doubt, have 52,000 people there. However, there will be games, Brighton at home, not usually a humdinger of a game. Might be the case where, we find that we're hitting that 44, 45,000 mark. But as you say, 10,000 people decided not to renew in the past. I mean, COVID might have changed a lot of people's minds and circumstances. So we will wait and see, of course. Funny C16 says, now that the takeover has been kicked down the road, can the local journalists take a leaf out of Gibbo's book and start calling Ashley and Charnley out? Okay, Gibbo, as we know, like yourself, Liam, is not shy in coming forward with his opinion about Newcastle, and certainly not afraid to criticise. I guess what Funny C is saying is that, maybe there's a lot of journalists out there are reluctant to call Ashley and Charnley out.
I don't know. I don't buy into that, to be honest. I don't think they've been given a free ride. I think a lot of people do call them out. And I'm happy to do so. I think everybody. I don't know a journalist in the North East Press Pack who is happy with Mike Ashley, A, and B, hasn't at some point quite consistently called him out for what he is and what he's done at Newcastle United. I think there is a renewed need for that at the moment. But I think we've seen that. I think I've seen. I was off last week, but I see bits and bobs, and I've seen the likes of even Luke Edwards, Simon Bird, others calling out Mike Ashley for not being a responsible owner. I think there was pieces in the Athletic. There's been pieces all over. The Chronicle have covered it as well. I think people do call them out, but what can you do ultimately? I mean, what is how much power does the local media have? We can call him out till we're blue in the face, but it's not really going to change the way he acts. It never has and it never will. I think there is a defeatist attitude, but that's not just from the media. I think the media do call him out. Fans are defeatist. I think there is a feeling that among the fan base that no matter what they do, they know that's what Mike Ashley is, and Mike Ashley will do what Mike Ashley does. And I think we're stuck with him. Look, I'm fully behind his idea of selling the football club. I am not fully behind Mike Ashley owning the football club. I want him gone yesterday. I'm fed up of him being the custodian of our great football club, the custodian of our emotions, and custodian of our feelings, our heart, because that's what it is. It's playing with us, and he's played with us for 14 years. And good riddance the day that he leaves. I think no matter who buys it, it'll be a celebration because we'll be rid of what ultimately has been a parasite for this football club, the decisions that have been taken. That doesn't mean, by the same token, I'm not fully behind his idea of selling the football club, because ultimately it's the same goal. We want the same goal. He wants gone and we want him out. But I don't support the man and his actions. I think he's been an absolute disgrace of an owner for this football club.
There's News Now's headlines for this week, Liam. For any of you who don't know what I'm talking about, we always end up on this News Now website, Fancast, Newcastle Fancast or something, always puts a piece out about whatever me and Liam say on Tuesday night show. So we always try to predict exactly what on earth is going to come over.
It's going to be Mike Ashley Parasite, isn't it?
It is. People think it's a follow-up to the Parasite film. Okay, Mr. 1234 on my shoe on Twitter says, question: with the obvious lack of investment and the club being run with minimal staffing, has Big Mike now washed his hands of the club?
I think did he ever really have his hands in the club? I think it was probably only a period of 12 to 15, 16 months that he actually did at the start. But I get the point in what you're saying. Has he washed his hands? He was saying May last year, he was telling sort of people close to him that it wasn't his football club anymore. And I think the idea is he doesn't want it to be his football club anymore. But will decisions have to be made in the interim until it's somebody else's football club? Yes, of course they will. And I think things will start moving. It's been a depressed transfer market, and there isn't a lot of movement. And Newcastle United haven't got a lot of money and are working under strict constraints. So I think you will see movement. I've got absolutely no doubt Newcastle United will sign at least 2-3 players this summer. And I think there'll be players that make an impact on the first team. And fingers crossed one of them's Joe Willock.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Stephen Locke again wants to talk transfers. He says that if Brentford can spend £13 million on Aya and Palace can sign 2 players for 20 plus million, despite the pandemic, why can't we? And is it concerning if we can't even compete with the teams in and around us financially?
Different financial models, different ownership models. That's just the top and bottom of it. There's no way I can sit here and explain as to why that is the case, but that just is the facts that Newcastle United work in a totally different way to other clubs. Newcastle United will not be borrowing against future revenues. Brentford has seen a massive impact on their finances for next season, for next year's financial figures in a real positive way. They'll never have seen money like that come into the football club. And it's okay if I was there to think, right, well, we're going to spend a bit of that. We're going to try and remain. We're going to give this a go. As for Crystal Palace, I don't know their finances, but I know they're owned by people who are progressive and want the club to succeed. Like Ashley, I don't ever believe, apart from, like I say, maybe that first year and a half, has ever wanted Newcastle United to succeed. I think it's just been a sort of a thing that's a minor annoyance in his business empire. That's all Newcastle United's ever been. And I think it's just come to the point now where he's found somebody who'll take that minor annoyance off him. Just the Premier League won't let them take it.
Yeah, I would agree as well on that. Tom Fraser says, with Muto looking like he's leaving and Carroll already gone, do you think there's any strikers that Newcastle are looking at bringing in? Because we're really short in that area now.
I think a backup striker is a player that would like to bring in, but I don't think it's top of the priority list. I think a little revamp of the back line in terms of bringing some pace and physicality in there is one area, and a big revamp of the midfield, because there's doubts about a number of players in those midfield positions. Jeff Hendrick being top of the pile, both Longstaffs being very close to the top of the pile too. Probably Matty more than Sean. Big doubts about Isaac Hayden. We've seen him used at centre half in the last friendly. John Joe Shelby, there's still some uncertainty with regards to his future. But what I would say is that's kind of what they're looking at. With regards to striker, I know people keep not counting it, but in this system, Alan St Maximin's effectively a striker, by the way. He isn't. So your front two is Alan St Maximin and Callum Wilson. I think a lot of people, when they're putting together little lists, don't really look at that. So there's your front two. Then your backup to that is Dwight Gale and Joe Linton. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that's absolutely brilliant, but there are 4. There's not 3. There's 4. There is 4 forward players to play in those positions. And Ryan Fraser plays that position as well. In my eyes, I would love to see a proper backup brought in for Callum Wilson, and I would allow Dwight Gale to go. That would be my choice if I was building this squad together. But like I say, things might move, things might change, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think if Newcastle United get their 2 midfielders and a defender, they'll be very happy this summer.
Yeah, I think it's certainly one of those transfer windows where we're all hoping for one thing, but I think the club are looking to deliver something completely different. So let's see. Spenny Mag says, "How confident are you that the Willock deal will go through?" I mean, we discussed this last week. On the weekend of the protest down in London, it seemed as if there was a lot of positivity around it, but that seems to have dampened a little bit this week. But there's been very little come out about Willock.
Well, Joe Willock's played very little football this summer. He was a part of the first friendly and hasn't played a part in any of the others that Arsenal have taken part in since. There has been some suggestion, could he be one of those COVID impact, close contact, etc., why he wasn't involved in Arsenal's last friendly? I don't have the answers to that. But one thing that I think is increasingly obvious is that Joe Willock doesn't really have a part to play in this Arsenal squad. It would be more of a surprise if he remains at Arsenal than it would be if he leaves elsewhere. And there are clubs interested in Joe Willock, but Joe Willock would prefer to come to Newcastle United. It's ultimately the problem that Newcastle United desperately want the player. The player would love to come back, but it depends what Arsenal want. Do they want to sell the player to finance other deals? Because they are going through a big squad revamp of their own. How confident am I? My confidence is irrelevant. Effectively, it doesn't matter how confident I am that the deal will go through, because that's not going to mean it's going to go through or won't. But I would say, like I said, I've said all the way through, I think there's a decent chance that Joe Willock will pull on black and white again. But when that deal happens, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, big shout out to our sponsors, as always, Spider VPN, who've been with us for the last few months. For all your internet security, Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the search list, and they can help protect your passwords and anything else that you have on your computer. Big shout out to the lads. And thanks to skipsandbins.com for staying with us for another month as well. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. And the website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Also, big shout out to John at QTech, who is suffering a little bit with COVID at the minute. So get well soon, John. John is qtechshop.co.uk, the place which makes pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And he also runs our website, don't forget, where you can buy some great t-shirts and different bits and bobs. NUFCmatters.com. Very easy to remember. Have a pop on there tonight, see if there is a t-shirt that tickles your fancy. And also a big shout out as well to John at Jab Signature, who designs all of our flyers and has been with us since the very start. We're back on the days of Instagram. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, do what another 100 people have done in the last 7 days, and that is subscribe. It is free. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You have subscribed to the channel. Hit the thumb up to like this video, which is just down underneath the video. You can see it there. Hit that, which is does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media, and drop into the comments, because even though it's not live tonight, you will still be able to chat to people on the YouTube comment section. And big shout out to everybody watching tonight. Also, we are available on all your podcast providers such as Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. So if you missed the show, you can listen to it when you are out and about. And also want to give a shout out to another talk-in that I am doing, which will be on the 19th of August with Supermac. Now, tickets have sold quite well already for this. I think people are getting back into the feeling of getting back out and about. So quite a small venue, but a very impressive one. The Farmhouse Kitchen, £10 a ticket. Just find out more information from their Facebook page and their Twitter account on how to get the tickets. They are only £10, but me and Malcolm are looking forward to that. And Shambles Travels are taking people to Burton this coming Friday. Still places left on the coach. It's a 1:30 departure from the Jury's Inn, and tickets are £30 for the bus. So book now, 0779 141 779. Speak to Amanda if you want to go to Burton. I'll be in this coming Friday on the bus with Shambles Travels. Okay, on to the questions again. And Paul Tevzi 0611, He says, what does Liam think about fans renewing season tickets and buying the merchandise, even though Ashley has stated that there is only a pittance in the kitty? And why do fans fund him, even though he has no interest in funding the club himself?
I think everybody has their own reasons. I think it's a really difficult question to answer. It's a really hard one, and it's a really impossible conundrum for many people. Is that they don't support the man at the top. They don't want to line his pockets, but they also want to enjoy something that they've always enjoyed. And I can see both sides. There is a militant faction who will cut ties, who will move away, but the large majority aren't like that. And I respect both sets of people. I respect the strength of character to be able to cut ties and move away and say, I'll come back when he's gone. But I also respect the people who can't cut ties and can't move on. Because we don't want to lose generations in Newcastle United fans, because things will get better at some point. He will be gone. There is nothing surer than that. He will be gone at some point. And that will be our football club, fingers crossed again at one point. I can understand both. I'm certainly not going to sit here on this show and criticise anybody for buying one of the new shirts. I would never criticise anybody for buying a ticket. I wouldn't criticise anybody. I wouldn't criticise anybody for shopping at Sports Direct, because ultimately you might get your cheap training gear for the gym from there or whatever, or something, for the kids' PE or whatever. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying I couldn't criticise anybody who decided if that was their thing. Ultimately, if you start going down that route, you're turning fans against fans, and we're not the problem. Fans aren't the problem. The media isn't the problem. Mike Ashley is the problem. And how do you get Mike Ashley out? I get all of these arguments. That's why I'm saying it's such a complex thing to say, but I'm certainly not going to sit here and criticise anybody for just living their life and doing things that they want to do and enjoy. And ultimately, there's always going to be disagreements on that. Or I equally respect people for making a stand and sticking by that as well. But I'm not going to criticise anybody for whatever they may take, because ultimately it's your life and you choose how you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Steve?
Very deep, yeah. John Gandhi says, with Andy Carroll no longer at the club and Muto seemingly off to Greece, do we have any striker targets? I think we're short on this option. I mean, it's a question that got asked before there as well. It's just slightly different what John's asking. But, I mean, I personally felt we were going to go for Josh King. That didn't happen. I mean, it just seems that a lot of people feel that a striker would be the main focus of the recruitment team's attentions, because I know you say that ASM is playing centre forward. He has to be considered as a centre forward, but I just feel a lot of people would feel happier. And I mean, Wilson, great goal against Donny the other night, and he loved the fact that he was doing it in front of the supporters. But I think a lot of people would feel more comfortable having a centre forward.
I agree, but I think a lot of people would feel a lot more comfortable if Dwight Gale was a better centre forward. If there was a better backup, I think that's the problem. It isn't the case of numbers. It isn't the case of having one more. We need another one, because ultimately Andy Carroll barely got a kick last season. So it's not a case of numbers. It's just quality. And I think that's the thing that should have been addressed, if possible. And I think would have been addressed this summer, had COVID not hit, would have been making sure that Dwight Gale is replaced with a better version. But I don't think that'll happen. If it does, brilliant. I'd be dead happy, because I've said on this show many times before that if Callum Wilson stays fit from now until the end of the season, I think Newcastle United will be absolutely fine. But Newcastle United without a Callum Wilson suddenly become real relegation candidates, because he's your 20 goal a season man. I know he didn't get 20 last season, but if he played a full season, I have no doubt he would have got 20, given his ratio of goals to games last season. And the same goes for Alan St. Maximin. If Alan St. Maximin fancies it and is on form, he's absolutely unplayable in this division. But he does pick up his injuries as well. And Newcastle United really need to make sure they don't have long periods, and need to manage those two players really well to make sure that they're not absent together for a long period, because that could really spell problems.
Stuart Taylor says, realistically, if our budget is 10 million, how many loan players could we get in?
I think Newcastle United will be looking to bring 2 loan players in this summer. they normally keep their powder dry till the January window, but I think they're gonna throw them all in this summer with budgets being so tight. So I think they'll sign 2 loan players this summer.
Okay, Galazzo on Twitter, Galazzo90 says, does the Man City legal case for the last 2 years have any impact on the Newcastle United takeover decision? Is the Premier League fearful another wealth owner could use financial doping to plug large transfer spending?
I think it's been quite key from very early on that the mantra from the Saudis has been that they would not go down the Manchester City route, and it would not be the same. And I don't believe they would pump the same kind of finances in or on a regular basis what Manchester City have. I do think it will be transformative for Newcastle United, but I don't think the Man City model is one that mirrors what would have happened here had PIF been given the keys to the football club. Not initially, at least, from the soundings that I've had. I don't know how much of an impact. I think that case is more being used to highlight legal angles in particular. We've seen Nick DeMarco talk a lot on Twitter with regards to that. And I think it's about precedent. It's about transparency. It's a reverse. It's almost a mirror image that the Premier League have pushed for transparency and Man City haven't. I don't know the ins and outs of that case, and I can't say exactly what impact that will have, if any, on the Newcastle United deal. But I do think it's been used possibly, the idea of framing legal arguments and things like that, judging by Nick DeMarco's activity on Twitter.
Okay, why haven't the club announced the players who haven't been offered new contracts have left the club? Says Stephen Locke.
No idea. I think Christian Attu's sort of touched upon that. I think it may have been in an interview in the Athletics, saying he was a bit peed off. Basically, they never got a good buy or anything. It was a bit strange, but the Andy Carroll one was very similar. It seemed strange just to let that one sort of float away and not even say thank you very much, see you later. Smacks a bit of disrespect, doesn't it, really? I don't understand. I don't have the answer as to why the club have done that, but it's certainly a question I can ask.
Yeah, certainly got everybody scratching their heads in the fan base. Vinyl CD Collections Wanted says, with the chances of player recruitment being low at this moment in time, do you think it might be enough for Steve Bruce to throw the towel in and walk away?
No, I don't think he'll throw the towel in and walk away. And although it will be frustrating for everybody at present, there will be players coming into Newcastle United this summer. I'm not going to promise that they're going to be amazing, but I do think they will sign. I think they'll still get 3 players through the door. There is still a significant time left in the transfer window. I'm not going to say that I think they'll have 3 players through the door before the first ball being kicked in the Premier League, which is only 2.5 weeks away, but I do think they'll have at least 1.
You've said what you think the club will prioritise. Phil wants to know what you would look at. He says loan deals are going to be a significant part of our transfer plans with 2 Premier League loans allowed. Which players and positions would you prioritise?
So I think the club, I'll be honest, and I think the club have got it absolutely right with regard to the midfield. I think the midfield needs a massive revamp. And I think if you sort the midfield problem out, it actually fixes issues elsewhere as well, because it's such a key place in the team. I think if you can get forward-thinking players to break the lines, as Willock did, if you can get somebody else in that kind of ilk as well, if you can get a better defensive midfielder, it plugs gaps, it gets you goals further up the park, it sort of covers you defensively as well. And I think they've got it absolutely spot on with regards to that. I think the other one, going for a centre-half, I'll be the first to say that Newcastle United have got a good set of defenders, really good, consistent defenders in that pack. They've got absolutely no pace at all. And to play this 3, you need a little bit of that. So I think they've got a spot on there. They're going to have to bring somebody in a little bit more agile, mobile in the back 3, which it looks like they're going to play this season. But I also see the idea that a centre forward is needed. I've said this on here many times. I would have got rid of Dwight Gale, and I would have brought somebody in that position. That would have been my absolute priority this summer, because I think losing a Callum Wilson for any length of time takes Newcastle United from probably being a 12, 13, about where they finished last season-ish, takes you all the way down to being a sort of 17, 18 team. And I think it's key. Goals win you games, and they haven't got a backup. They've got Dwight Gale, but he proved when he was given the opportunities last season that he didn't quite step up to the mark. And I've got grave doubts he will do next season. But I can't criticise the club for the transformation that they're trying to make, because I think midfield, But if you fix that midfield problem and get some more legs in that midfield, then I think it fixes other issues elsewhere.
Yeah, okay. Mike Wise is laying with the current case between Man City ongoing. It looks like there's foul play from City regarding the FFP, financial fair play, of course. Do you think the EPL reasoning for trying to stop the Newcastle takeover could be to prevent something like this happening again?
I'm not going to speculate on what Man City have and haven't done legally, but it didn't make for great reading. If you with regards to Manchester City, it looks like sanctions may well come their way at some point. A lot depends on what evidence isn't already out in the public domain, I think. But obviously, the legal teams will be able to deal with that. Do I think that was the main reason why the Premier League didn't want it? No, I don't. I think the main reasons are all out there for everybody to see. And I think it's with regards, I don't think Manchester City were a massive problem, but I think some other football clubs were a problem. And I'm not sure it's always been the Premier League pulling the strings on this. I think that's been hinted at by others, and I tend to agree.
Ken Walker says, how long can the Premier League bury its head? Surely British law should be saying we need answers to why you can't make your mind up one way or another. 110,000 fans, the PM calling them a cartel, loads of MPs asking questions, but they just ignore everybody.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I think everybody's frustrated with the situation. But like I hinted at earlier, if this is to go long, we will get answers and we will get decisions. How long the procrastination can go on from the Premier League, I'm not so sure. There are people who are more legally minded than me say that it can't go on forever. I'm not. I'm, as you say quite often now, Steve, you're not legal, neither am I. But I can't say how long things will take. And I can't say what sort of things the Premier League will pull out their sleeve to delay at the next juncture. It could just happen again. But ultimately, it will not happen forever. There will be answers at some point. But will everybody hang around forever, or will frustration come into play? The soundings are that people aren't going to run away. They are going to hang around and make sure that they see this one through. I've got no idea on timescales though, and unfortunately that's the most depressing thing for everybody. That's why I'm kind of like at the start of the show here, urging everybody to maybe just turn your head away from that a little bit, because you're just kind of running over old ground. It'll happen if it happens when it happens. It's sitting worrying about it and picking up pieces of arguments from elsewhere and thinking what impact does that have ultimately isn't really going to change what might happen or will happen. So I would just deal with the here and now, and ultimately the here and now is also rather depressing in the fact that Newcastle United, without a decent little sale or anything like that this summer, are going to be sort of dealing in quite a depressed market themselves.
Yeah, okay. What are the chances of signing Ross Barkley, says Gary?
I think he's a player that's on that list. There's one I forgot to mention earlier, but he is one that they are looking at. What's the chances of it? Again, it's one that we'll have to wait and see on developments elsewhere, but I don't think at this stage he'd be going back to Aston Villa. I don't think that's one that the player particularly wants and the manager of Villa particularly want either. But there will be other clubs interested, and there are other clubs interested. I think, again, Barkley moves on from a Gallagher because Gallagher's the one that they would like. If they could get Gallagher, then Barkley can't come, and that's the end of that because it will be two loans from the same club, both players being at Chelsea. So again, I think it's one of those sort of file it with a Maitland-Niles idea that it could happen, but I suspect it would only happen if the other deal didn't happen, i.e. Willock and Gallagher.
Yeah, okay. Got another question in from Dean. He just says, do you think the club are actually concerned about season ticket sales? I mean, we've heard this many times that, the season ticket sales aren't as important, due to the vast amount of money they get from TV. But do you think the club are concerned about it?
Well, I think it's brought it into much sharper focus. The idea that fans do matter because budgets have been stripped because fans haven't been in the ground. Do I think they care? I think if they didn't care, they wouldn't bother promoting it particularly. I think if they didn't care, they wouldn't have bothered with the 10,000 giveaway. I think it matters to them that people are in the ground. But are they taking the right actions to keep that relationship with the fan base going? they've soured the relationship, because Newcastle United fans would have walked over hot coals to get tickets 20 years ago, and they've burnt that relationship. They've effectively put that wall up because of the treatment of fans, and I think that's the problem, that I don't really think they're going to really change their ways. And it's about whether it's an individual choice whether you want to remain or whether you don't. And it's a conundrum that should never be placed on Newcastle United fans' shoulders, because we are a loyal bunch, and we do care. It's in the heart, it's in the blood, and it shouldn't be something that's levelled at us. And I do feel sorry for a lot of people out there. Look, I'm in a position, I could quite easily be in everyone else's position, because I was a season ticket holder before I became a journalist. I was going to Newcastle United for 10, 11 years as a season ticket holder in the Gallagher. And I would be sitting, had I not taken this career path, I would be sitting in the same position as you guys out there now, thinking, will I, won't I? And I'm not going to sit here and say what I would do and what I wouldn't do, because I think that's unfair. And I don't judge anybody for the decisions that they take.
No, me neither. Okay, slightly shorter show tonight, just due to the pre-recording. Liam and I both been busy today. Just want to ask you about COVID passports, Liam, because that's something that's obviously dominating the national news, and the fact that we may have to have proof that we've been double jabbed by the time it comes around to the October fixtures. Is that something you think's a good move on behalf of the government?
It depends. It depends how deep the COVID passport idea goes. If you have to only show proof, which we do actually have, I haven't been double jabbed yet. I can't get my second jab until I think it's 28 days after a positive COVID test. So I'm waiting for the next couple of weeks to then rebook my second jab. You've got proof that you've had your jab. Having to show that and prove that you've had a second one isn't really a problem. If there's some kind of deeper data thing going on here, then I do have problems with that. That's not something that I particularly want to sign up to, and I think a lot of people don't want to sign up to. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a minefield. I think it depends on what this COVID passport idea would entail, really. And until we know the exacts on it, I can't really say what I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Look, if you've had it and you've got the passport, show it. It's as simple as that. It's interesting though to see that they're bringing it in now. Why bring it in then? Obviously, because everyone should be jabbed by October. That's the answer to that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of months on that as well, I'm sure. Liam, quick plug for where people can find you, mate.
So if you have a look down here, that's my Twitter handle at Liam J Kennedy 23. So you'll catch any of my work there if you like what I do. Just check that out. Slightly new job title within the same company, working for I'm no longer aligned to the Shields Gazette in particular from this week onwards. Just for a little while I'm working for within the company, the national title. It's recently been relaunched, called National World. So check them out, search them out on Twitter, give them a follow. That's where you'll catch all my work. National World.
And that was me just dropping me beer mat. So that wasn't anything to do with me missus. So I'll not blame her for that. So sorry for that loud bang. Liam, as always, great stuff. And look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Have a good week, mate. Take care.
Cheers.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way